and welcome to this video, and today's video is basically a follow-up from the previous video which I did, which was all about tattoo needle depth. Now in this video I'm going to be showing you how to actually set your tattoo needle, whether it be a coil machine or a rotary machine. I'm going to be discussing the common mistakes that a lot of people tend to make whilst they're setting the needle depth. I'm going to be going into loads of detail on what the actual tattoo stroke is, because a lot of people get confused what that actually means. I'm going to be covering all that right here in this video. Now guys, really quickly important, before we get into this video, I can't stress enough how important it is not to skip any parts of this video. Just set 10 minutes aside and watch the video in its entirety. And the reason for that being is because the way I've constructed this video is each chunk of bite-sized information builds on the previous one. So if you were to skip halfway through this video, it might not make much sense to you because you've not seen the previous piece of information. Now I've put so much time and effort into this video guys, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, so please drop your comments in the box below. Give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. With all that said guys, let's not waste any more time because I'm super excited to bring this video to you, and let's get straight into it. Okay guys, so quickly before I explain why we set the needle like I'm about to show you, we first need to actually see how we set the needle, and there's two main ways of doing this depending on which setup you're using. So let's first look at the easiest method, which is on a tattoo pen. The one in this example is the Cheyenne Hawk pen, but the vast majority of pens all work the same way. So we attach our cartridge to the machine, stand on the foot pedal, run the machine. We take a visual of how far the needle is coming out of the tip. We twist clockwise on the grip to give us more needle coming out of the tip, and anti-clockwise to have less needle coming out of the tip. Now this stage of setting the needle is really down to personal preference. You can set it so there's just enough needle hanging out so you can actually drag the tip along the skin, but because the needle depth is so shallow there's no risk of going too deep. This is known as riding the tube. Or you can set the needle to hang out of the tip quite a lot, and you control how much the needle actually goes into the skin using your hand holding the machine. Now this method is known as floating the tube. I do cover the pros and cons of each of these methods in another video, and I'll stick a card up on the screen, and if you click that you can watch it after this video. Now if you're using a standard tattoo needle and tube, let's say like you'd use with a coil machine, here's what you do. Now unlike using the pen, there's no real need to run the power whilst you're setting the needle with this typical kind of setup. So with the machine off, first we loosen the tube clamp so the tube and grip can easily move up and down. Then we simply press the armature bar down all the way down till it makes contact with the front coil, hold it there, and whilst we're doing that we look at the end of the tip. Now what we have to do is slide the grip up and down to our desired needle depth, and then we tighten up the tube clamp. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's quite simple. Now in this next section I'm going to explain a common mistake that some people tend to make whilst actually setting their needle depth in the tube. So we've set our needle to our preferred depth. We now need to focus on the tip, because this is a common mistake that people sometimes make, especially if they're new to tattooing, and it's a mistake that can lead to poor quality lines, poor shade, colour, but more importantly it's a mistake that could potentially cost you a lot more than poor ink, and one that could potentially risk your health. Now when a coil machine is off, i.e. no power being applied to it, the needle will fully retract into the tip. When a good quality tattoo pen is off, again meaning no power, the needle will also fully retract into the tip. Now I do use the term good quality tattoo pen because the cheaper ones don't tend to come with this retracting feature, and the needle basically just stops wherever it happens to be when the power's off. But obviously this is not the case with a coil machine. A coil machine will always retract when the power's off. So when your needle is in the fully retracted position, there shouldn't be any needle hanging out of the tip. Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there's no definitive right way to tattoo. But there's definitely a wrong way to tattoo, and having your needle hanging out of the machine when it's off, in my opinion, is wrong. Now I'm not just going to say it's wrong and leave it at that. I'm going to back it up with facts and explain why it's wrong. So when a needle returns to the tip fully, it essentially picks up more ink to then go and deliver it to the skin. And by returning fully to the tip, it allows the ink to saturate all around the needle before it travels out again on its journey to the skin. Now in contrast to this, if the needle isn't able to fully return to the tiny reservoir of ink in the tip, then the ink doesn't fully saturate the needle. Doing this will ultimately result in the tattoo having weak, patchy ink in certain areas of your tattoo, and this will be even more noticeable once the tattoo is fully healed. Now, the other reason which I just mentioned about the potential danger to your health is this. When your machine is off and the needle is fully retracted inside the tip, there's little to no chance at all of receiving a needle stick injury. Now, this has to be one of the top scary moments that any tattooist can be faced with, so reducing this risk to an absolute minimum is vital. But working in a busy studio and taking all the precautions in the world, at some point you're most likely going to be caught off guard through either a lapse of concentration or even a situation that's out of your control, and it could be something as simple as somebody accidentally bumping into you. But my point is, when the needle is fully retracted, this massively reduces the risks of getting stuck with a needle. So in stark contrast to this, we now look at a needle that doesn't fully retract into the tip when the power is off. So when the machine is off and the needle's still hanging out, it's going to massively increase your chances of obtaining a needle stick injury because it's always hanging out of the tip. So let's just say, for an example, you're halfway through a tattoo and you're wanting to wipe the tattoo down, so you place your machine down and you reach for the wash bottle. And a movement as simple as this could easily catch you out and stick you with the needle if the needle isn't fully retracted. And another reason to back my point up why I think a needle should be fully retracted is also the fact that machine building companies actually build this feature into the machines to make the needle fully retract when the power's off. And obviously this feature would be completely pointless if people just left the needle hanging out of the tip. So this also backs up my point of saying the needle definitely should be fully retracting into the tube when the power's off. So let's say we've set our needle to the depth that we're comfortable to tattoo at. The needle's hanging out nicely out of the tube when we're running the machine. This example will be classed as a setup that's floating the tube. So we've got our needle hanging out of the tube, which gives us really nice visibility to actually see the needle going into the skin without obscuring our view with the tip and the grip. But when we turn the power off, the needle doesn't fully retract back into the tip. But Jono says the needle must retract back into the tip to get the best ink saturation and to protect ourselves. If we alter the tube and grip position, then we've sacrificed how much needle is hanging out of the tip again. So we don't want to do that because we've just set it and we're comfortable with how much needle is actually hanging out of the tip. So if you want quite a lot of needle hanging out of the tip, but you also want it to retract fully into the tip, what do we do? This is why we need to fully understand what the stroke is when we actually buy a machine and also how to change it when possible. And in this next section coming up, I'm going to explain all of this to you. So you've probably heard the term stroke flying around when you've been looking at machines to buy them or even setting up your machine, and you might not understand what it actually means. Well, simply put, the stroke is the distance that the armature bar travels from its most upright position to its most down position. Now, the confusion comes here with a lot of people because they get stroke mixed up with needle depth, and the two are completely different things. Because we can change the needle depth, as we just previously explained, by changing the position of the grip and tube with a coil machine, or by twisting the grip if you're using a pen. But the actual stroke of a machine doesn't change when running it. So we quickly look at this example here. This machine's running at a typical stroke of 3.5 mil, and you can see the stroke will maintain 3.5 mil regardless on what the needle depth is set to. So back to the dilemma of having the needle hanging out to where you're comfortable with it, but then it doesn't actually fully retract to the tip. Then in this situation, you'd need your machine to have a bigger stroke. Anything like a Cheyenne Hawk, then it's going to be around about 3.5 mil. Now this can be found on the machine requirements before you even buy it. So this is why it's really important to know what size stroke that you are personally comfortable with before spending lots of money on a machine. Now the stroke on a coil machine can be adjusted simply by turning the front contact screw. If you back it out to make a bigger cap, then obviously that will give you a bigger stroke. But adjusting this will, however, have a direct impact on the speed of the machine as well, which I cover fully in another video, which is all about needle depth, and I'll put that card up on the screen so you can click on that as well. And obviously at the end of this video, you can go to that one and watch that one too. Now, I did mention the Shine Hawk pen stroke can't be adjusted, but some rotary machines can, and you can purchase additional accessories like cams and centers to actually change the stroke of these machines. Now, to name one of these machines, the Dragonfly X2 by Ink Machines, it comes with a standard stroke size of 3.7mm straight out of the box, but you can order different sizes centers to give the machine a different stroke. So for this particular machine, the Dragonfly X2, you can either have a 2.6mm, a 3.7mm, or even a 4.5mm center to give the machine a really big stroke. Generally speaking, a smaller stroke is typically used more for lining and a larger stroke is used for shading, colour packing. But for me personally, I find a 3.5mm stroke allows me to have enough needle hanging out of the tip when the machine's running and fully retracts into the tip when the power is off. So to quickly summarise guys, to set your needle properly to get the best tattoo results, it needs to be able to fully retract into the tip during every cycle and also sit snug back into the tip with no needle hanging out when the power's off. The stroke is the distance that the armature bar travels from its most upright position to its most down position. Obviously on tattoo pens these don't have armature bars, they have needle plungers, but it's exactly the same principle. The average stroke size for machines is around about 3.5mm, and generally speaking, a small stroke is more suited for a liner and a larger stroke is more suited for a shader or a colour packer. Thank you so much for watching this video guys. If you did like it, it means a lot to me if you just hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and more importantly, hit the notification bell and then you can stay up to date with all my latest uploads and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.